till you're done. Just turn 19, you've had your fun. So much in this world that looks like me. Who the hell am I now meant to be? Bye, everyone's got one. I'm so excited, I'm gonna look so dumb. And I could learn to walk and talk like you, or I could learn to try something brand new.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and I'm truly honored to be here. I'm a writer and a photographer, but I've only been writing and photographing for about 3 years. I started in 2010. But if I'm honest with myself, I started this about 14 years ago, and it's not thanks to Africa, it's thanks to a bunch of Native Americans. In 1999, I'd been in the advertising industry for about 4 years, and I realized already then that I wasn't suited for it. I wasn't suited for the corporate world. I also wasn't happy. I wasn't happy in South Africa. I wanted to get away from it. I didn't have hope for this country, and I wanted to get away from people. It was quite a tall order. I went to Alaska, far away as I could get, and I was terrified. That night, I landed in Anchorage, and I hardly left the airport. I camped just outside. I think I wanted to be near the escape route so I could go back home. I thought this was a stupid idea. I didn't sleep. I wanted my mommy. I was scared. I spent a lot of time in Anchorage just trying to get to grips with myself. And what I found there was something that had a profound effect on me. I found that the Native American people had lost their identity, or rather their identity had been taken away from them. Most of them were drunk. I would get on a bus in Anchorage, and you could smell the alcohol. And the Native American people that I saw on the bus were sitting there, and it was like they were clutching their spirits in brown paper bags. It had a profound effect on me. But the wilderness is never far away from Anchorage. Alaska is a very wild place. It's probably wilder than Africa. And I was hiking the mountains, I was crossing raging rivers, I was climbing glaciers. I loved it. I was free, I was a man, it was absolutely wonderful. And in between hiking trails, I had to get to another hiking trail, and inevitably I hitchhiked. Didn't have money to pay for transport. And hitchhiking, you meet people. And I got picked up by so many people. People were so kind. And it turned my impression of people around. They would put me up in their house for the night. They would feed me. With one person, I traveled for a full 3 weeks. They were wonderful. So it turned my impression of people around. But at the same time, there were lonely, lonely times. I didn't have much money, so I slept in the streets. I camped under bridges. I lived like a hobo for months. And in between that, I would hike. And of course, I was hiking alone, and it was a very lonely existence. I'd be up in the mountains quite a bit. And in Canada, I was coming down a mountain. I was on a mountain pass. And I'd been out there for about 5 days, and it was winter. It was coming in winter, the snow was falling, and it was cold. And I was tired, and I was hungry. I'd run out of food, and I was lonely, and I needed to get down. But I couldn't, because I rounded a corner, and there was a grizzly bear. And the grizzly bear had her cub with her, and they were feeding on berries. And if there's anything they tell you is do not go near a grizzly bear mother and her cub. So I quietly retreated and went back up the mountain. But that was the only way down. It was too steep any other way. I had to stay up there. And I was terrified. I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to freeze. I had no food. I couldn't get down. So it was quite a difficult moment. And I sat on a rock, and I just looked out, and there was the most incredible vista you've ever seen. The sun was just coming below the clouds. It was snowing. And I was looking on a mountain called Mount Assiniboine. Now, Assiniboine is named after the Native American tribe, the Assiniboine, because it is shaped like their teepee. It was beautiful. It was incredible. And I had the most incredible experience. I had an epiphany. Right there and then, looking at this view, being in that situation, I felt an immediate connection with the earth, with the people on it, with that grizzly bear. And I felt completely and utterly at ease. I was just a part of it all. It was wonderful. After that, I carried on traveling. I went all the way down to Mexico. I went up through to New York, and I was writing, and I was doing something I truly loved. And because I was reading a lot, I read something by an anthropologist and a scholar of Native American literature. His name was Michael Doris. And it reminded me of that night on the mountain, and it went something like this. Having never left his village, the Plains Indian male was expected at puberty to venture solo into the wilderness. There he had to fend for himself while avoiding unknown dangers, and there he had to remain until something happened that would transform him. Every human being, these tribes believed, was entitled to at least one moment of personal enabling insight. Anthropology proposes psychological explanations for why this flash was eventually triggered. Fear, fatigue, strange foods, loneliness, and stress all contributed to a state of receptivity. Every sense was alerted to perceive deep meaning until at last, the interpretation of an unusual event, an unexpected vista, a chance encounter reverberated with metaphor. Through this, a boy caught foresight of his adult persona and of his vocation, the two inextricably intertwined. I'd experienced this. I really knew that this was a significant moment. I knew what I should be doing. I knew I should be traveling and I should be writing. And when I got to New York, I was offered a job in advertising, and what did I do? I took it, like an idiot. Because the money was wonderful. And it's true what they say about New York, that city doesn't sleep. I was in an office that had no windows. For 2.5 years I worked there, and I didn't sleep either. I was stressed. Eventually I had to get away, and I just went for a break. I went to Morocco. I was back on African soil, and I loved it. I was doing my thing. It was wonderful. I was writing. I met my girlfriend on that trip. And we're still together. Isn't it great? She's Norwegian. She's gorgeous. Okay, that's not good enough to say. Right. So, but I had to go back to New York. I was still employed there. But I went back to a lot of stress. And you won't know how much stress, because soon after I got back, those planes hit those buildings. And any sense of connection that I felt with anybody, Americans, with the people that might have piloted planes, was gone. Now, Norway is a nice, calm, peaceful country, and I wanted to be there. I wanted to be away from that strife. And I said to myself, when I got to Norway, I will write. I was determined. And within a month of getting there, I was offered a job in advertising. So there I am in Norway. I've taken a job in the corporate world once again. I've got nothing against advertising. It just didn't suit me. And I worked there for 3 years, and I was stressed. And I had to get out. And I was offered a job in Amsterdam. Wow, Amsterdam is a fantastic place. And it was an astounding job. You know, it was incredible. And you know what I did? I didn't take it. I'd finally got somewhere. And I decided I'm going home. I'm going home to Africa. And the minute I landed in Cape Town, I took a job in advertising. Again, it's a corporate world, it doesn't suit me. Anyway, so I worked in the game for 5 years more. And eventually the agency leaders asked me to make a speech to the agency about how to find inspiration, how to awaken your creative spirit. And I remembered that speech about the Plains Indian, about the young boy's rite of passage. And I used it as a basis for my speech to persuade people to get out of the office, to get out of there, to go and learn about life on the outside, and to find inspiration there, because that's where you find inspiration, that's where you find the epiphanies. But it had absolutely no effect on anybody in the office, because all we did was sit and churn shit out from computers after that. But it had an effect on one person, and that was me. After 14 years, the penny had finally dropped, and I was getting it. And I decided right there and then, I'm not going to let the corporate world, or I'm not going to let myself do this to me. I'm not going to be one of those people going around on a bus, clutching a brown paper bag with my spirit hidden in there. And I got out of it. I got out of advertising, and I did what I love. So now, I'm a travel writer, and I'm so poor. You don't even know. It's ridiculous. I'm living handsome mouth. I'm a hobo. I'm scared sometimes. I'm scared of elephants. I've been chased by them. They're scarier than grizzly bears. I'm scared of teenagers with guns, but they're out there. I'm scared of a lot of things, but you know what it is? I'm out there and I'm challenging myself, and I have more epiphanies. I have epiphanies all the time, and it's fantastic. And what I want to say to you is that the one thing I love the most about traveling in Africa is the people I meet, and especially the school children. When I talk about Africa, I include South Africa. I include people next door. I include everybody. The school children are so inspirational. And especially in places like Malawi and Uganda and Kenya, like Richard Terere, like the Lion Lights. You know, these kids, they live a bit closer to the wilderness. They have it harder. And they probably have more epiphanies. So you've got it a little bit easier than them. You're a little further away from the wilderness, but you've got to take a bigger step to get in there. But I want to persuade you to not wait 14 years to take that step. Because by taking that step, you'll find out who you are. Thank you.